Kind black woman's help at crash unveils billionaire connection. The silver Merced spun wildly on the rain-slicked road, hydroplaning across 3 lanes before slamming into the concrete barrier with a sickening crunch of metal and glass. Steam billowed from the crumpled hood as traffic slowed to a crawl around the wreckage. Tamara Wilson watched it happen from her 10-year-old Honda, the one she'd been making payments on for far too long. She was already running late for her second job, the evening shift at Mercy Hospital where she worked as a nursing assistant. Her day job as a home health aide had run over when Mrs. Abernathy's son had shown up late to relieve her. Again, Tamara's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. She could see other cars simply driving past the accident, everyone in such a hurry, always in a hurry. She glanced at the dashboard clock, 5:47 p.m. Her shift started at 6:00. "Lord, give me strength," she whispered, putting on her hazard lights and pulling over to the shoulder. The rain was coming down in sheets as she grabbed her umbrella from the backseat and hurried toward the smoking vehicle. A moral question flickered through her mind. How many people had driven past? How many would stop for a stranger if there was nothing to gain? Would people be more likely to stop if it wasn't a luxury car, if it didn't suggest wealth that many resented? As Tamara approached the driver's side, she could see a man slumped against the steering wheel, a thin trickle of blood running down his temple. The airbag had deployed but was now deflated across his lap. He was wearing an expensive suit, though it was now torn and stained with blood. Sir, can you hear me?" Tamara called out, trying to open the door. It was jammed. She knocked on the window, but the man didn't respond. She dialed 911 on her phone, quickly giving the operator details about the accident and the man's condition. After being assured that an ambulance was on the way, Tamara tried the passenger door and found it unlocked. Climbing carefully into the car, mindful of the shattered glass, she checked the man's pulse. It was there, steady but weak. Tamara's nursing training kicked in as she assessed him for injuries, making sure he was breathing properly and wasn't at risk of choking. "Sir, my name is Tamara. I'm a nursing assistant. Help is on the way," she said loudly and clearly, though the man remained unconscious. As she stabilized his neck, Tamara noticed a photo that had fallen to the floor of the car, a picture of the man with a young girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old. They were both laughing, the girl missing her 2 front teeth, the man looking at her with undisguised adoration. Something twisted in Tamara's chest. She thought of her own daughter, Zoe, waiting at her grandmother's house right now. She would be there all night while Tamara worked her second shift. Another night of not tucking her in, of missing homework time and bedtime stories. But this man, this stranger, was someone's father, too. The distant wail of sirens grew louder as Tamara continued talking to the unconscious man, keeping her voice calm and reassuring. "Your little girl needs you to be okay," she said softly. "Just like mine needs me." The rain continued to pour as red and blue lights illuminated the crash site. Tamara stepped back as paramedics rushed to the vehicle. She gave them what information she had about the man's condition, then realized with a jolt that she was now thoroughly late for her shift. She called the hospital as she walked back to her car, explaining the situation to the charge nurse, who was fortunately understanding. As she ended the call, Tamara noticed one of the paramedics approaching her. "Ma'am, the patient is asking for you." Surprised, Tamara followed him back to the ambulance where the man was now conscious, an oxygen mask over his face and a temporary bandage on his head. "You stayed," he said weakly when he saw her, his voice muffled by the mask. "Everyone else just drove by, you stayed." "Anyone would have," Tamara replied, though they both knew that wasn't true. "What's your name?" he asked. Tamara Wilson." The man tried to reach for her hand, but winced in pain. "Michael Harrington," he said. "Thank you, Tamara Wilson. I won't forget this." Before she could respond, the paramedics closed the ambulance doors, and Tamara was left standing in the rain, watching as they sped away, sirens blaring once more. She was over 30 minutes late for her shift, soaking wet and exhausted before she'd even begun. But as she drove to the hospital, following the same route the ambulance had taken, Tamara felt a sense of peace that transcended her circumstances. She had done the right thing, not for recognition or reward, but because it was right. Some choices were that simple, even when they came at a cost. The Harriet Johnson home for the elderly wasn't fancy, but it was clean, well-maintained, and most importantly to Tamara, it treated its residents with dignity. She had researched dozens of facilities before choosing this one for her mother, Gloria, who had been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's 3 years ago. "Good morning, Ms. Gloria," Tamara said brightly as she entered her mother's room, carrying a small vase of daisies, her mother's favorite flowers. "I brought you some sunshine." Gloria Wilson sat in her armchair by the window, her once robust frame now frail, her dark skin ashen, but her eyes still lit up at the sight of her daughter. "Tamara," she said with a smile that made the exhaustion of working 2 jobs worth it. "Is it Tuesday already?" It was Saturday, but Tamara didn't correct her. "Yes, Mama, how are you feeling today?" "Oh, these old bones are tired," Gloria said, patting the chair next to her. "But I'm better now that you're here. Where's my grandbaby?" "Zoe's at a school event today, Mama. She'll come next time," Tamara said, arranging the flowers on the bedside table. In truth, Zoe was at a friend's house. The last time she'd visited, Gloria hadn't recognized her, and the 12-year-old had been devastated. Tamara was trying to space out the visits to protect both her daughter and her mother from the pain of the disease that was slowly stealing Gloria away. "You work too hard," Gloria said suddenly, with a clarity that sometimes broke through the fog of her condition. "Always did, even as a little girl so serious about everything." Tamara smiled sadly. "Someone had to be after Daddy left." "He was a good man who made bad choices," Gloria said, a familiar refrain that had lost its sting over the years. "But look at you now, a nurse." "Nursing assistant, Mama," Tamara corrected gently. She had always dreamed of being a registered nurse, maybe even a nurse practitioner someday. But life had intervened, her mother's illness, single parenthood, bills that kept piling up despite working 60-hour weeks. Her associate's degree in nursing had to be enough for now. "You'll get there," Gloria said, with the unwavering faith she'd always had in her only child. "My Tamara never gives up." The visit passed too quickly, as it always did. Tamara helped her mother with lunch, read to her from her favorite book of Psalms, and brushed her thinning hair the way Gloria had once brushed hers. As she prepared to leave, promising to return in a few days, Tamara was stopped by the facility director, Ms. Patel. "Ms. Wilson, do you have a moment?" Tamara's heart sank. These conversations were never about good news. "Is everything okay with my mother?" "Your mother is fine," Ms. Patel assured her. "But I wanted to discuss her account. We haven't received this month's payment, and you're now 2 weeks past due." Tamara closed her eyes briefly. "I know, I'm sorry. I get paid on Friday, and I'll bring the check then, with the late fee." Ms. Patel's expression was sympathetic but firm. "This is the 3rd time in 6 months, Ms. Wilson. I understand your situation is difficult, but it won't happen again," Tamara interrupted, unable to bear the pitying look. "Friday, I promise." As she drove home, the weight of her financial obligations pressed down on her like a physical burden. The nursing home was $3,200 a month, almost all of Tamara's take-home pay from her hospital job. Her home health aid work covered her and Zoe's apartment, food, and utilities, with barely anything left over. There were no extras, no luxuries, no savings for emergencies or for Zoe's education. And now the nursing home was threatening to evict her mother if the late payments continued. Tamara pulled into the parking lot of her apartment complex, a sprawling, somewhat run-down collection of 2-story buildings on the outskirts of the city. As she turned off the engine, she allowed herself a rare moment of despair, resting her forehead against the steering wheel as a few tears escaped. "Lord, I'm trying," she whispered. "I'm doing everything I can. Please just show me a way." The sound of tapping on her window startled her. Tamara quickly wiped her eyes and looked up to see her elderly neighbor, Mr. Guzman, peering in with concern. "You okay, Ms. Tamara?" he asked when she rolled down the window. "You've been sitting here a while." "I'm fine, Mr. Guzman, just tired," she said, forcing a smile. "How's Mrs. Guzman's back doing?" "Better since you showed her those stretches," he said. "She wants you to come for dinner this week. No excuses this time. You and Zoe both need a good home-cooked meal." The kindness almost undid her again. "That would be nice, thank you." As Tamara climbed the stairs to her second-floor apartment, she mentally calculated how much overtime she could pick up at the hospital this week. Maybe if she took an extra shift on Thursday, the door to her apartment flew open before she could get her key in the lock. "Mom," finally. "You won't believe what happened at school today." Zoe Wilson bounced on her toes, all gangly limbs and boundless energy. At 12, she was already taller than many of her classmates, taking after her father's height rather than Tamara's petite frame. Her skin was a warm brown, a perfect blend of Tamara's deep ebony and Marcus's lighter complexion. Her hair was pulled back in a neat braid that Tamara's neighbor, Ms. Rivera, had done for her that morning while Tamara was at her mother's. "Hold that thought, baby," Tamara said, pulling her daughter into a tight hug. "Let me get inside and put my things down first." The apartment was small but tidy, a combined living room and kitchen, 2 tiny bedrooms and 1 bathroom. Tamara had worked hard to make it feel like a home, with colorful throw pillows, family photos, and Zoe's artwork displayed proudly on the walls. but it was getting too small for her growing daughter, who needed more space than the shoebox bedroom could provide. "Okay, now tell me what happened," Tamara said, kicking off her shoes and sinking onto the sofa. "Mrs. Rodriguez picked my science project for the district competition," Zoe exclaimed, her face alight with excitement. "Only 3 kids from each school get to go, and I'm one of them." Pride swelled in Tamara's chest. "That's amazing, Zoe. I knew your project on soil erosion was special. And if I win at districts, I could go to the state competition in the capital," Zoe continued breathlessly. But her excitement dimmed slightly. "There's a registration fee, and we need to buy supplies for a better display board." "How much?" Tamara asked, already knowing that whatever the amount, it would be difficult to find. $200, Zoe said quietly, watching her mother's face. "But Mrs. Rodriguez said there might be some funding from the school for students who can't afford it." The familiar sting of inadequacy twisted in Tamara's gut. Her brilliant, hardworking daughter shouldn't have to rely on charity to pursue her talents. "We'll figure it out," she said firmly. "This is important. We'll make it work." Zoe's smile returned, though more subdued. "Thanks, Mom. I know money's tight right now." Too perceptive for her own good, Tamara thought. Zoe had grown up too fast, shouldering adult worries from an early age. It wasn't fair, but then life rarely was. "How was Grandma today?" Zoe asked, changing the subject as she often did when money came up. "She was having a good day," Tamara said. "She asked about you, said to tell her science genius granddaughter hello." The lie came easily, a small mercy to protect her daughter from the painful reality of Gloria's decline. Zoe nodded, seeming to accept this, though Tamara sometimes wondered if her perceptive child saw through these well-intentioned deceptions. As Zoe went to finish her homework, Tamara began preparing a simple dinner of pasta and jarred sauce, inexpensive but filling. Her phone buzzed with a text from her supervisor at the home health agency. "Can you take Mrs. Abernathy tomorrow morning? Regular aide called out sick. Time and a half." Tamara closed her eyes, calculating. The extra money would help with Zoe's science competition fee, but it meant another Sunday, the one day she usually had free, spent working instead of with her daughter. Before she could reply, another text came through, this one from a number she didn't recognize. "Ms. Wilson, this is Michael Harrington, the man you helped after the car accident last week. I'd like to thank you properly. Please call me at your convenience." Tamara stared at the message in surprise. How had he gotten her number? And what did "thank you properly" mean? The cynical part of her, the part that had been disappointed too many times, immediately put her guard up. But another part, the part that had made her stop on that rainy evening, was curious. She set her phone down without responding to either message. Dinner first. Zoe first. The rest of the world could wait. Later that night, after Zoe had gone to bed, Tamara sat at their small kitchen table with a cup of tea, staring at the unpaid bills spread before her. The nursing home invoice. The electric bill with its bold red "Final Notice" stamp. Zoe's upcoming school expenses. The registration fee for the science competition. She picked up her phone and responded to her supervisor first. "I'll take the shift. What time?" The reply came immediately, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Then, against her better judgment, she typed a response to Michael Harrington. "No thanks necessary, just doing what anyone would do. Glad you're recovering." His response came quickly. "Few people would have stopped, even fewer would have stayed until help arrived. Please allow me to express my gratitude. Lunch tomorrow, name the place." Tamara shook her head. She didn't have time for lunch with strangers, no matter how grateful they might be. "Working tomorrow, take care." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Monday then, or any day this week, please, it's important to me." Something in the persistence gave her pause. What harm could there be in letting someone say thank you? And maybe, just maybe, there might be an opportunity here, a connection that could lead to better paying work or information about scholarships for Zoe. "Monday, 1 p.m. Green's Cafe on Maple Street," she typed, naming a simple diner near the hospital where she could grab lunch during her break. "I'll be there. Thank you, Tamara Wilson." As she gathered up the bills and put them away, problems for tomorrow, Tamara wondered about the man whose life she had possibly saved. Michael Harrington. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. Probably just another wealthy businessman who thought money could solve everything. Well, in her case, money could solve quite a lot. But Tamara had learned long ago not to expect miracles, especially not from strangers in expensive cars. Monday arrived with the usual rush of morning activities, getting Zoe off to school, taking care of Mrs. Abernathy. Her Sunday client had asked for her again, impressed with her efficient yet gentle care, and then hurrying to the hospital for her afternoon shift. Green's Cafe was busy with the lunch crowd when Tamara arrived at precisely 1 p.m., her hospital ID badge still clipped to her scrubs. She had only 30 minutes before she needed to be back on the floor, and she was already questioning the wisdom of this meeting. She spotted him immediately, sitting in a booth by the window. Michael Harrington looked markedly better than the last time she'd seen him, though a butterfly bandage still adorned his forehead, and his left arm was in a sling. He stood when he saw her, a gesture that seemed oddly formal in the casual diner. "Ms. Wilson," he said, extending his right hand. "Thank you for coming." Tamara shook his hand briefly. "Just Tamara is fine, and I only have half an hour." "Of course," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "I've already ordered for myself, but please get whatever you'd like. My treat, obviously." A waitress appeared, and Tamara ordered a chicken salad sandwich and iced tea. When she left, an awkward silence fell between them. "How are you feeling?" Tamara asked finally, gesturing to his injuries. "Much better, thanks to you," Michael said. "Concussion, dislocated shoulder, some cuts and bruises. It could have been much worse if you hadn't stabilized me before the paramedics arrived." Tamara nodded. "I'm glad you're recovering well." Michael studied her with intense blue eyes that seemed to see more than she was comfortable revealing. "You don't remember me, do you?" Tamara frowned. "Should I, beyond the accident, I mean?" "I suppose not. It was a long time ago," he said. "Mercy Hospital, 2012. You were still in nursing school, working as an aide. I had just been appointed to the hospital board." Tamara cast her mind back. 2012. She would have been 25, a single mother with a 3-year-old working nights while taking classes during the day. The hospital board members occasionally toured the facility, but they were just a blur of suits and meaningless pleasantries to the overworked staff. "I'm sorry I don't recall," she admitted. "No reason you should," Michael said, "but I remember you. You were taking care of my mother during her last week of life." The revelation stunned her. "Your mother?" "Eleanor Harrington. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, room 507. The memory surfaced slowly, a thin, elegant woman with silver hair and quiet dignity, facing death with a grace Tamara had rarely witnessed before or since. "I do remember her," Tamara said softly. "She had a collection of vintage brooches she wore every day." Michael's face lit up. "Yes, she was so insistent about not looking like a sick person. And you helped her with her hair and makeup every morning, even though it wasn't really your job." "She said it helped her feel human," Tamara recalled. "It was such a small thing to do." "It wasn't small to her, or to me," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. "She told me about the kind young nurse who treated her like a person, not a disease, who talked to her about real things, not just her medications or symptoms, who made her last days dignified." The waitress returned with their food, breaking the emotional moment. Tamara used the interruption to collect herself, unsettled by the coincidence, or perhaps not coincidence, of their paths crossing again. "And now, all these years later, you stopped to help a stranger on the road," Michael continued once they were alone again. "The same compassion, the same willingness to go above and beyond. It's remarkable." Tamara took a bite of her sandwich to avoid responding immediately. She wasn't comfortable with praise, especially from someone who seemed to be elevating ordinary decency to heroic proportions. "I'm a nursing assistant," she said finally. "Helping people is literally my job." "Your job was at the hospital, where you were already late because of me," Michael pointed out. "You had every reason to drive by like everyone else did, but you didn't." Tamara shrugged, uncomfortable with his admiration. "What is it you want, Mr. Harrington?" "You didn't track me down just to reminisce about your mother or thank me for basic human decency." If her bluntness offended him, he didn't show it. Instead, he smiled, a genuine expression that softened his otherwise austere features. "Direct, I appreciate that," he said. "You're right. I want to offer you something in return for your kindness, both instances of it." Here it comes, Tamara thought, money, as if her actions had been transactional, as if human compassion could be bought and paid for. "I'm not interested in a reward," she said firmly. "Not a reward," Michael corrected. "An opportunity. I've done some research on you, Tamara Wilson." The statement sent a chill through her. "Excuse me. I hope you'll forgive the intrusion, but I wanted to understand the woman who has now twice shown extraordinary kindness to my family," he said. "I know you're working 2 jobs to support your daughter and pay for your mother's care. I know you're a single parent. I know you had to abandon your education when your mother became ill." Tamara set down her sandwich, appetite gone. "That's crossing a line, Mr. Harrington. My personal life is none of your business." "You're absolutely right," he acknowledged. "And I apologize, but what I learned only confirmed what I already knew, that you're exactly the kind of person the Harrington Foundation wants to support." "The Harrington Foundation?" "My family's charitable organization," Michael explained. We provide educational grants and career advancement opportunities for healthcare workers, particularly those from underserved communities. We focus on individuals who have demonstrated exceptional compassion and dedication to patient care, people like you. Tamara's defenses remained high, though curiosity was beginning to win out. What exactly are you offering? A full scholarship to complete your nursing degree, with a guaranteed position at Mercy Hospital upon graduation. Plus a stipend to cover living expenses while you study so you won't have to work 2 jobs. The words hit her like a physical blow. It was everything she had ever wanted, the dream she had reluctantly set aside when life's responsibilities had become too overwhelming. It was also too good to be true. Why would you do this for a stranger? She asked, suspicion clear in her voice. You're not a stranger, Michael said simply. You cared for my mother when she needed dignity. You stopped for me when I needed help, and now I can help you. That's not charity, Tamara, that's balance in the universe. Tamara glanced at her watch. Her break was nearly over. I need to get back to work, she said, standing abruptly. The conversation, the offer, the entire situation was too overwhelming to process in half an hour over lunch. Michael stood as well, reaching into his jacket to pull out a business card. Take some time to think about it. Call me when you're ready to discuss details. Tamara took the card automatically, her mind racing. I appreciate the offer, but no buts, Michael interrupted gently. Just think about it, that's all I ask. As Tamara walked back to the hospital, the business card seemed to burn in her pocket. Michael Harrington, CEO, Harrington Global Investments. The name finally clicked, one of the wealthiest men in the city, maybe even the state. A regular on the society pages she glimpsed while paging through magazines in waiting rooms. And he wanted to change her life because she'd shown basic human decency. It was too much, too convenient, too miraculous. Tamara had learned long ago that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. There had to be a catch, an angle, something he wasn't telling her. Yet as she clocked back in for her shift, a dangerous spark of hope had been kindled in her heart. What if just this once something extraordinary was happening? What if this was the answer to her prayers? What if this was her way out? A full scholarship? Mom, that's amazing! Zoe exclaimed that evening when Tamara cautiously shared the offer with her daughter. You've always wanted to finish your nursing degree. Now you can. They were sitting at their small kitchen table, sharing a simple dinner of baked chicken and rice. Tamara had been unusually quiet since returning from work, turning over Michael Harrington's offer in her mind. It's not that simple, baby, Tamara said, watching her daughter's excited face with a mixture of love and caution. We don't know this man, not really, and rich people don't just hand out life-changing opportunities for nothing. Zoe's expression faltered. But he said it was because you helped his mom and then helped him, right? Maybe he's just grateful. Maybe, Tamara conceded. Or maybe there's something else going on. I need to be careful, we need to be careful. But you're going to consider it, right? Zoe pressed. You always tell me that education is the key to a better future. This is your chance, Mom. The hope in her daughter's eyes was almost painful to see. Zoe had grown up watching her mother sacrifice everything for her and for Gloria. She'd never complained about second-hand clothes, missed school events when Tamara had to work, or the constant refrain of maybe next time when it came to movies, outings, or anything that cost extra money. I'll think about it, Tamara promised. But even if I did accept, it would mean big changes for us. I'd have to cut back my hours to attend classes. We'd have less money coming in, at least temporarily. But we'd have the stipend he mentioned, right? Zoe reasoned. And when you finish, you'll be a real nurse with better pay and better hours. Such simple logic, Tamara thought, so appealing, so potentially naive. Let me do some research first, she said. Find out more about this Harrington Foundation and what strings might be attached to their generosity. Later that night, after Zoe had gone to bed, Tamara sat at her computer, searching for information about Michael Harrington and his foundation. What she found was surprisingly legitimate. The Harrington Foundation had been established 15 years ago, following the death of Eleanor Harrington. It had an impressive record of philanthropic work, particularly in healthcare and education. The Foundation's scholarship program was well documented, with testimonials from past recipients who had gone on to successful careers in nursing, medicine, and allied health fields. There were no obvious red flags, no scandals or controversies associated with the Foundation or with Michael Harrington personally. If anything, the more Tamara researched, the more legitimate the offer appeared. Michael Harrington seemed to be exactly what he presented himself, as a wealthy businessman with a genuine commitment to giving back, particularly in areas that had touched his family personally. Tamara leaned back in her chair, conflicted. If the offer was genuine, turning it down would be foolish. This was the opportunity she had prayed for, a chance to complete her education and provide a better life for Zoe and better care for her mother. But years of struggle had taught Tamara to be cautious, to question good fortune, to look for the hidden costs in any situation. She had been disappointed too many times to trust easily, especially when the stakes were so high. Her phone buzzed with a text from her supervisor at the home health agency. "Need you to cover for Lena tomorrow morning." "Client Jenkins, 7 a.m." Tamara sighed. Another early morning, another day of running from job to job, of barely keeping her head above water. How long could she continue like this? How long before the exhaustion affected her work, her health, her relationship with Zoe? Before she could overthink it, she picked up her phone and dialed the number on Michael Harrington's business card. It rang 3 times before he answered, his voice alert despite the late hour. "Tamara, I'm glad you called. I have questions," she said without preamble. "About the foundation, the scholarship, all of it." "Of course you do," he replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "You'd be foolish not to. How about we meet again, somewhere you'd be comfortable? Bring a list of everything you want to know." They arranged to meet the following afternoon at a public library near Tamara's apartment, neutral ground where she felt they could speak freely. As she hung up, Tamara felt a strange mix of anxiety and anticipation. She was stepping into unknown territory, considering a path that could change everything. Sleep was elusive that night, her mind too busy crafting questions, considering possibilities, and yes, allowing herself to tentatively hope. By morning, she had a neatly written list of questions and concerns, as well as a determination to protect herself and her family from potential disappointment. The Jenkins assignment went smoothly. An elderly gentleman recovering from hip surgery who needed minimal assistance and enjoyed sharing stories about his grandchildren. By the time Tamara left, she had almost an hour before her meeting with Michael, enough time to stop by Gloria's nursing home for a brief visit. Gloria was having one of her bad days, confused and agitated, repeatedly asking for her own mother, who had passed away decades ago. It was heartbreaking to witness, a cruel reminder of the disease that was stealing away the strong, vibrant woman who had raised Tamara with such love and determination. "It's okay, Mama," Tamara soothed, holding her mother's restless hands. "Everything's going to be okay." Whether Gloria understood or simply responded to the calming tone, she gradually settled, her agitation fading into a drowsy contentment. As she dozed in her chair, Tamara spoke to her in a low voice, sharing her thoughts about Michael Harrington's offer. "What would you think, Mama? You always told me to grab opportunity with both hands, but also to trust my instincts. Right now, my instincts are all over the place." Gloria didn't respond, of course, but there was comfort in speaking the words aloud, in imagining what advice her mother would give if she could. "I think I'm going to do it, Mama," Tamara decided, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "If it's real, if it's legitimate, I'm going to take this chance. For me, for Zoe, for all of us." A peace settled over her with the decision, a sense that regardless of Michael Harrington's motivations, this was the right path forward. She would still ask her questions, still protect herself as best she could, but she wouldn't let fear prevent her from accepting a genuine opportunity for change. The Lakewood Public Library was quiet on a Tuesday afternoon, with only a few patrons browsing the shelves or working at the computers. Tamara arrived early, choosing a table in a corner of the reading room where they could speak privately without being completely isolated. Michael arrived precisely on time, dressed more casually than at their previous meeting in a simple button-down shirt and slacks. He carried a leather portfolio and a small gift bag, which he set on the table as he greeted her. "Thank you for meeting me again," he said, taking the seat across from her. "I brought some information about the foundation that might address some of your questions before you even ask them." He opened the portfolio and slid several documents across the table, brochures about the Harrington Foundation, details of the scholarship program, and testimonials from previous recipients. "And this," he added, pushing the gift bag toward her, "is just a small token. Nothing expensive or inappropriate, I promise." Cautiously, Tamara reached for the bag and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a vintage silver brooch, a delicate flower with tiny pearl accents. "It was my mother's," Michael explained quietly. "One of the ones she wore during her hospital stay. She would have wanted you to have it." Emotion welled up unexpectedly in Tamara's throat. The gesture was thoughtful, personal in a way that money could never be. It spoke to a genuine connection, a shared memory of a woman who had faced death with dignity, aided by small kindnesses. "I can't accept this," she said, though her fingers lingered on the beautiful piece. "Please," Michael said simply. "It would mean a great deal to me." Tamara closed the box gently and set it aside, neither accepting nor rejecting the gift outright. Thank you, it's beautiful and the sentiment means a lot. But I came with questions and I need honest answers before we go any further. Of course, Michael nodded, leaning back in his chair. I'm an open book. Tamara pulled out her list, determined to maintain her composure and objectivity. Why me? Really, there must be dozens, hundreds of healthcare workers more qualified for this opportunity. The Foundation's mission isn't just about qualifications, Michael explained. It's about identifying individuals with exceptional potential and character who face significant barriers to advancement. You're exactly the kind of candidate we look for, someone with demonstrated compassion, strong work ethic, and the determination to overcome obstacles. But there are no strings attached, no obligation to work for your companies or your foundation after graduation. Michael shook his head. None whatsoever. The only requirements are maintaining a 3 GPA and completing the program. After that, your career choices are entirely your own, though as I mentioned, there would be a position available at Mercy Hospital if you wanted it. And the stipend, how much are we talking about exactly? $2,000 per month, Michael said. Enough to replace the income from your second job with a bit extra for unexpected expenses. It's not meant to be luxurious, just sufficient to allow you to focus on your studies without financial strain. The amount took Tamara's breath away. It was more than she made at the hospital, enough to cover her mother's care with some left over. It seemed too generous, raising her suspicions once more. What about my mother's situation, my daughter? Would we have to move or change our lives dramatically? Not at all, Michael assured her. The program is designed to minimize disruption. You'd attend classes at City University's nursing program, which is less than 3 miles from your current apartment. The schedule can be arranged to accommodate your family responsibilities. Tamara frowned, uncomfortable with how much he seemed to know about her life. And what does the foundation get out of this? Tax breaks? Good publicity? Michael didn't seem offended by the question. Both, to be honest. But more importantly, we get to fulfill our mission of increasing diversity and compassion in healthcare. The foundation was established in my mother's memory to promote the kind of care that made her final days bearable. You embody that ideal. Tamara went through the rest of her questions methodically about the application process, simplified in her case, given Michael's personal recommendation. The timeline: she could begin classes with the new semester in January, and the sustainability of the support, guaranteed through completion of her degree, regardless of how long it took. With each answer, her skepticism gradually gave way to a cautious acceptance. The opportunity was real. The foundation was legitimate. The offer was genuine. I'll need to think about it, she said finally, though her decision had already been made. Discuss it with my daughter, make sure it's the right move for our family. Of course, Michael said. Take all the time you need, the offer won't expire. As they gathered their things to leave, Michael hesitated, then spoke again. There's one more thing, Tamara, something I haven't mentioned yet because I didn't want it to influence your decision about the scholarship. Tamara tensed, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The foundation also has a healthcare assistance program for families of scholarship recipients, he continued. It would cover any costs associated with your mother's care that aren't covered by insurance or Medicaid. Again, no strings attached, no obligations, just a recognition that caregivers need support too. The world seemed to tilt slightly beneath Tamara's feet. The nursing home costs, her most crushing financial burden, taken care of. It was too much, too perfect, too precisely targeted to her most pressing needs. Why? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why would you do all this? Michael was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. When my mother was dying, I was at the peak of my career, consumed with acquisitions and expansions and quarterly reports. I visited her, of course, but always briefly, always with one eye on my phone. I told myself I was building a legacy she would be proud of. He paused, the regret evident in his face. On one of my visits, I overheard her talking to you. She was telling you about her garden, about how she had taught me the names of all the flowers when I was a boy, and you were listening, really listening, in a way that I hadn't done in years. Tamara remembered that conversation, remembered the light in Alina's eyes as she described her beloved roses, her voice growing stronger with each shared memory. That night, I sat with her for hours, Michael continued. I asked her about the garden, about her life, about everything I had been too busy to discuss. It was the most meaningful conversation we'd had in decades, and it happened because you showed her the simple respect of listening. He met Tamara's gaze directly. You gave me back my mother in her final days, and then, years later, you quite possibly saved my life. Some debts can't be repaid with money, Tamara, but I can try to make your path a little easier as you did for me and my mother." The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable, the emotion genuine. For the first time, Tamara allowed herself to fully believe in the opportunity being offered, not as charity or obligation, but as a meaningful connection between two people whose paths had crossed at pivotal moments. "I'll call you in a few days," she said, her voice steadier now. "Thank you for answering my questions." As they parted ways outside the library, Tamara realized she was still holding the small velvet box with Alina Harrington's brooch, a token of remembrance, of recognition, of the ways in which small acts of kindness could ripple outward in unexpected directions. She slipped it into her pocket, a tangible reminder that sometimes, just sometimes, good things happen for good reasons. Welcome, class of 2026. Today marks the beginning of your journey to becoming registered nurses, healers, advocates, and essential members of the healthcare community. Tamara sat in the lecture hall of City University's School of Nursing, surrounded by students mostly a decade younger than herself. The dean's welcome speech washed over her, a surreal soundtrack to the moment she had dreamed of for so long. 6 months had passed since her meeting with Michael Harrington at the library. 6 months of paperwork and preparations, of adjustments and anticipation. And now, here she was, officially a nursing student again, with a clear path to the career she had always wanted. The transition hadn't been entirely smooth. There had been skepticism from friends who warned her about rich people's agendas, confusion from colleagues who couldn't understand why she would give up the security of her hospital position, and her own moments of doubt about whether she could succeed academically after so many years away from formal education. But there had also been incredible support. Zoe had embraced the change wholeheartedly, proudly telling her friends that her mom was going back to college to become a real nurse. Gloria, during a period of lucidity, had wept with joy when Tamara shared her news. And the Harrington Foundation had been true to every promise, providing not only financial support, but also mentorship and resources to ease her return to student life. As the dean concluded his speech, and the students began filing out to their first classes, Tamara felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see a woman about her own age, with warm brown skin and tired eyes that suggested she too understood the challenges of balancing multiple responsibilities. "Another returning student?" the woman asked with a knowing smile. "I'm Letitia, 36, 2 kids, and terrified I've forgotten how to study." Tamara laughed, recognizing a kindred spirit. "Tamara, 34, 1 daughter, and definitely in the same boat. Want to form a study group for us old folks?" "Absolutely," Letitia agreed. "I need all the help I can get." As they exchanged phone numbers and compared schedules, Tamara felt a sense of belonging she hadn't expected to find so quickly. The journey ahead would be challenging, but she wouldn't be walking it alone. Later that evening, as she helped Zoe with her homework at their kitchen table, now also Tamara's study space, her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "First day of classes. How did it go?" Over the months since accepting the scholarship, Tamara's relationship with Michael had evolved into something unexpected, not quite friendship, but a genuine connection based on mutual respect. They met occasionally for coffee or lunch, their conversations ranging from her studies to his business endeavors to shared observations about life's complexities. "Overwhelming but exciting," she texted back. "Thank you again for making this possible." His response came quickly. "You made it possible through your own actions. I merely removed some obstacles. Keep me posted on your progress. And remember, there are resources available if you need tutoring or additional support." Tamara smiled at his formal tone, so characteristic of a man more accustomed to boardrooms than casual conversation. Yet beneath the formality was a genuine concern that still surprised her at times. "Mom, are you listening?" Zoe's voice broke into her thoughts. "I need help with this algebra problem." "Sorry, baby, let me see," Tamara said, setting aside her phone to focus on her daughter. This was the new balance she was learning to strike: student and mother, caregiver and care recipient, independent woman and grateful beneficiary. It wasn't always easy, but it was infinitely better than the exhausting treadmill of working 2 jobs with no end in sight. As she guided Zoe through the algebra equation, Tamara reflected on the chain of events that had led to this moment. A rainy evening, a car accident, a connection neither of them had initially recognized. What were the odds? What divine orchestration or cosmic coincidence had placed her on that particular road at that particular moment? The cynic in her, the part shaped by years of struggle and disappointment, might once have dismissed such thoughts as naive. Now, sitting in a home no longer shadowed by constant financial anxiety, helping her daughter with homework instead of rushing to a second job, Tamara was learning to embrace the possibility of benevolence in the universe. Sometimes, just sometimes, kindness was repaid with kindness. Sometimes, compassion created connections that transcended social barriers and circumstances. Sometimes, doing the right thing, even when it came at a cost, led to unexpected blessings. Not always, not reliably. Not in ways that could be predicted or manipulated, but sometimes, and sometimes was enough to keep faith alive. "Got it," Zoe exclaimed, successfully completing the problem. "Thanks, Mom, you're good at explaining things. You're going to be the best nurse ever." Tamara hugged her daughter close, treasuring the moment and the journey ahead. "We'll see, baby, but I'm sure going to try." Later that night, as Zoe slept and Tamara prepared for her first day of classes, she carefully pinned Eleanor Harrington's brooch to the collar of her shirt. A reminder of where this journey had begun, of the connections that had made it possible, and of the ripple effects of simple human kindness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to learn and grow. But tonight, in the quiet of her home, Tamara Wilson allowed herself to simply be grateful for second chances, for unexpected connections, and for the mysterious ways in which compassion could circle back to find you when you least expected it. The hospital corridor was busy as Tamara made her rounds, checking on patients and updating charts with practiced efficiency. 3 years had passed since that first day of nursing school, years filled with late-night study sessions, challenging clinical rotations, and the constant juggling of family responsibilities with academic demands. But today, those years of effort had culminated in this moment, her first day as a registered nurse at Mercy Hospital, the silver RN pin on her lapel catching the light as she moved from room to room. "Nurse Wilson, can I get your opinion on Mrs. Rodriguez in 304? Asked Dr. Chen, a young resident who had quickly learned to value Tamara's insights. "Her pain seems poorly controlled despite the current regimen. Her chart shows she metabolizes medications quickly," Tamara replied, pulling up the patient's information on the computer. "We might need to adjust the dosing schedule rather than just increasing the amount. Let me check with pharmacy about options." Dr. Chen nodded appreciatively. "Good thinking. Let me know what they say." As the resident moved on, Tamara felt a familiar sense of satisfaction. This was what she had worked for, not just the title or the improved salary, but the ability to make meaningful contributions to patient care, to be a respected voice in treatment discussions rather than just a pair of hands carrying out others' instructions. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, a text from Zoe, now 15 and increasingly independent. "Grandma having good day. Went for walk in garden. Will visit after school. Love you." Tamara smiled at the update. Gloria's condition had stabilized somewhat over the past year, though the progression of her Alzheimer's couldn't be halted. But the additional resources provided by the Harrington Foundation had allowed for enhanced care, including specialized therapies and programs that improved her quality of life. Zoe had blossomed too, excelling in school and developing a particular interest in science and medicine, perhaps influenced by Tamara's own educational journey. The science competition that had once seemed an impossible financial burden had been just the first of many opportunities she had been able to pursue, no longer constrained by their precarious financial situation. "Tamara, I thought I'd find you here." The familiar voice made her turn. Michael Harrington, dressed in his usual impeccable suit, was walking toward her, a bouquet of flowers in hand. "Michael," she greeted him warmly. "What are you doing here, board meeting?" "Partly," he acknowledged. "But mostly I wanted to congratulate you on your first official day as an RN. These are for you." He handed her the flowers, a thoughtful arrangement of daisies, her mother's favorites, mixed with elegant roses that reminded her of Eleanor Harrington's stories. "Thank you," Tamara said, genuinely touched by the gesture. "For these and for everything else, I wouldn't be here without your help." Michael shook his head, a familiar argument between them. "You would have found a way eventually. You're too determined not to. I just accelerated the timeline." Their relationship had evolved over the years into a genuine friendship, transcending the initial benefactor-recipient dynamic. Michael had become an occasional presence in Tamara and Zoe's lives, attending Zoe's science competitions, joining them for holiday meals, providing guidance when asked but never imposing his views or values. "Walk with me," Michael suggested. "I have something I'd like to discuss with you." Curious, Tamara checked the time. Her lunch break was just beginning and nodded. "The courtyard. It's quiet this time of day." The hospital's central courtyard was a small oasis of greenery amid the clinical environment, with benches placed strategically among flowering plants and a small fountain that created a peaceful background murmur. They found an unoccupied corner and sat, the late spring sunshine warm on their faces. "So," Tamara prompted after a moment of comfortable silence, "what's on your mind?" "The foundation is expanding its healthcare initiatives," Michael began. "We're launching a new program focused specifically on elder care and dementia support, inspired partly by your mother's journey and the challenges faced by families like yours." Tamara nodded, listening intently. Over the years, she had occasionally shared her experiences with Gloria's care, the frustrations and gaps in the system that made an already difficult situation even more challenging. "We want to create a comprehensive support network, financial assistance, yes, but also education, respite care, emotional support for families. And we need someone to help shape and eventually lead this initiative, someone with both professional knowledge and personal experience." It took a moment for his words to register fully. "Are you offering me a job?" "More like inviting you to create one," Michael clarified. "The position would be part-time initially, allowing you to continue your nursing work here. But it would evolve as the program grows. You'd have significant input into the program's development, working directly with our foundation team to ensure it meets real needs, not just theoretical ones." Tamara was momentarily speechless. The opportunity was unexpected but intriguing, a chance to use her hard-won knowledge and experience to help others facing similar challenges. "Why me?" she asked finally, echoing the question she had asked 3 years earlier about the scholarship. "Surely there are people with more experience, more credentials." "More credentials, perhaps," Michael conceded, "but not more insight or compassion, not more first-hand understanding of what families need. The foundation doesn't just want another healthcare administrator. We want someone who has lived this reality and can translate that experience into meaningful support for others." The offer was tempting, a chance to make a difference on a larger scale, to perhaps prevent others from facing the overwhelming stress and financial strain that had nearly broken her. But Tamara had only just achieved her goal of becoming a registered nurse. Was she ready to divide her focus? "I'd need to think about it," she said carefully. "Talk to Zoe, consider how it would affect our lives." "Of course," Michael agreed. "There's no rush. The program is still in the planning stages. But I wanted you to know that the opportunity is there when you're ready." As they continued their conversation, touching on Zoe's academic progress, Gloria's health, and Michael's latest business ventures, Tamara found her mind returning to the strange symmetry of their connection. How an act of kindness toward Eleanor Harrington had eventually led to this moment, this opportunity, this friendship that defied conventional social boundaries. "Do you believe in fate?" she asked suddenly, interrupting Michael's description of a new hospital wing being funded by the foundation. He paused, considering the question with characteristic thoughtfulness. "Not in the sense of a predetermined path we're powerless to change," he said finally. "But I do believe that certain connections are significant, that some people enter our lives for a reason even if we don't recognize it at the time." Tamara nodded, thinking of that rainy evening on the highway, of her initial suspicion of Michael's motives, of how differently things might have turned out if she had driven past the accident like everyone else. "When I stopped to help you that night, I had no idea who you were," she admitted. "I didn't remember your mother, didn't make any connection to my past. I was just doing what seemed right in the moment." "And that's precisely why it mattered," Michael said softly. "You didn't stop because I was Michael Harrington with resources that might benefit you someday. You stopped because someone needed help. The world would be a better place if more people made choices that way." Before Tamara could respond, her pager buzzed, a patient needed attention. "I have to go," she said, standing reluctantly. "But thank you for the flowers and for the opportunity. I'll think about it, I promise." Michael rose as well. "That's all I ask, and Tamara," he hesitated, then continued. "Whatever you decide about the foundation position, I want you to know that our connection, our friendship, isn't contingent on your acceptance. That's important to me." The sincerity in his voice touched her. "I know that," she assured him. "It's important to me too." As she hurried back to her unit, Tamara reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point, from overwhelmed single mother working 2 jobs to registered nurse with options and opportunities she had never imagined possible. The path hadn't been easy or straightforward. There had been setbacks and challenges, moments of doubt and frustration. Nursing school had tested her in ways she hadn't anticipated, forcing her to adapt and grow. Balancing her studies with Zoe's needs and Gloria's care had required constant juggling and occasional sacrifices. But through it all, there had been support, from the Harrington Foundation, yes, but also from friends and neighbors who had stepped up to help, from classmates who had become trusted allies, from Zoe who had matured into a thoughtful young woman who understood the value of her mother's pursuits. And now, this new opportunity, a chance to transform her personal challenges into a resource for others, to create something meaningful from the difficulties she had faced. As Tamara entered her patient's room, professional smile in place and mind focused on the immediate need, she carried with her the awareness that sometimes, the most significant turning points in life came disguised as everyday choices. Sometimes extending kindness in a moment of need could set in motion events that transformed not just your own life, but the lives of others in ways you could never anticipate. It wasn't fate exactly. It was more like connection. The invisible threads that bound people together across time and circumstance, creating patterns of meaning in what might otherwise seem like random events. "How can I help you today?" she asked her patient, the simple question carrying echoes of that rainy evening years ago, of Alina Harrington's hospital room, of countless moments when she had chosen compassion despite her own circumstances. How can I help? A question that had changed everything. 5 years later, the Harrington Center for Elder Care and Family Support stood on what had once been an abandoned lot on the edge of the city. A modern, welcoming facility surrounded by carefully tended gardens and accessible walkways. Inside, sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating spaces designed for both practical support and emotional comfort. Tamara Wilson Harrington moved through the building with purpose, pausing to greet staff members and visitors, checking on programs in progress, and making mental notes about small improvements that could enhance the experience for families seeking help. As executive director of the Center and vice president of Elder Care Initiatives for the Harrington Foundation, Tamara had overseen its development from concept to reality, a journey that had paralleled her own personal and professional growth over the past 5 years. "Mom, there you are," called a voice from the reception area. "I've been looking everywhere for you." Zoe, now 20 and home from her sophomore year at university, where she was studying biomedical engineering, hurried toward her mother. She had grown into a confident young woman, her academic brilliance matched by a compassion that made Tamara immensely proud. "Sorry, baby, meeting ran long," Tamara explained, embracing her daughter. "Is everything okay with Grandma?" "She's fine," Zoe assured her. "Having a tea party with Mrs. Peterson in the garden. I just wanted to let you know that Michael called. The board approved the expansion funding. We can move forward with the satellite centers." The news was cause for celebration, the culmination of months of planning and presentations. The Harrington Center had proven so successful that similar facilities were now planned for underserved communities across the state, with Tamara's program serving as the model. "That's wonderful," Tamara said, a sense of accomplishment washing over her. "We should tell your father when he gets back from his conference." The thought of Michael still brought a smile to her face, even after 3 years of marriage. Their partnership had evolved gradually, built on mutual respect and shared values that transcended their different backgrounds and experiences. Together, they had created something neither could have accomplished alone, a foundation that truly understood the needs of those it served, that combined resources with genuine compassion. "He already knows," Zoe grinned. "He was calling from the boardroom, said to tell you he's taking us all out to celebrate tonight." "All of us?" Tamara questioned, knowing how difficult public outings could be for Gloria as her condition progressed. "He's arranged a private room at La Terrace with staff who understand Grandma's needs," Zoe explained. "He thinks she's having a good enough day to manage it, especially since it's such a special occasion." Tamara nodded, touched by Michael's thoughtfulness, his consistent efforts to include Gloria in family moments whenever possible. It was one of the countless ways he showed his love, not through grand gestures, but through careful attention to what truly mattered to her. "I need to finish up a few things here," Tamara said. "Can you stay with Grandma until I'm done? We'll head home around 4 to get ready." "Of course," Zoe agreed. "Take your time. Grandma's enjoying herself, and I brought my tablet to work on some research while I sit with her." As Zoe headed back toward the gardens, Tamara continued to her office, a comfortable space decorated with family photos, professional certifications, and mementos of the journey that had brought her here. On her desk stood a small silver frame containing the vintage brooch that had once belonged to Alina Harrington, a reminder of where it all began. Settling into her chair, Tamara opened her laptop to review the final proposals for the satellite centers. Each would be tailored to its specific community's needs, but all would share the core principles that had made the original center so effective: respect for elders' dignity, comprehensive support for caregivers, and services accessible to families across the socioeconomic spectrum. A knock at her door interrupted her concentration. "Come in," she called, looking up to see Maria Santos, one of the center's social workers. "Sorry to disturb you, Director Wilson Harrington," Maria said, "but there's a woman in reception who's asking about our emergency support services. She seems pretty desperate, working 2 jobs, mother with dementia, daughter she's trying to put through college. Sounds like she's at the end of her rope." The description hit close to home, echoing Tamara's own circumstances from years ago. "I'll come speak with her," she said immediately, rising from her desk. In the reception area, Tamara found a woman about her own age, exhaustion evident in the slump of her shoulders and the dark circles under her eyes. She introduced herself with a professional warmth that put the woman visibly at ease. "Ms. Rodriguez," Tamara said after listening to her situation, "first, I want you to know that you're not alone. What you're doing, juggling multiple responsibilities, trying to care for everyone, it's incredibly difficult. But there are resources available to help." Relief flickered across the woman's face at being understood. "I just don't know how much longer I can keep going like this," she admitted. "Something has to give, and I'm afraid it's going to be me." "I understand completely," Tamara assured her. "Let's talk about some immediate support options, and then we can look at longer-term solutions." Over the next hour, Tamara personally walked Ms. Rodriguez through the center's services respite care that would give her breaks from caregiving, financial assistance programs for her mother's medical needs, educational support for her daughter, and counseling to help her manage the emotional toll of her responsibilities. By the end of their conversation, the woman's posture had changed, hope replacing desperation in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "I came in here thinking I had no options, and now you have a plan," Tamara finished for her, "and a support system. That's what we're here for." As she watched Ms. Rodriguez leave with appointments scheduled and resources in hand, Tamara felt the familiar satisfaction of making a tangible difference in someone's life. This was why she had ultimately accepted Michael's offer to help develop the Foundation's Elder Care Initiative, to create the support system she had once so desperately needed herself. Later that evening, as the family celebrated the board's approval of the expansion funding, Tamara looked around the table with a full heart. Gloria, having one of her increasingly rare good days, was smiling as Michael patiently helped her navigate her meal. Zoe was animatedly describing her latest research project, her passion for science and helping others a reflection of both her parents' values. And Michael, catching Tamara's gaze across the table, raised his glass in a silent toast to all they had built together. "I have something I want to say," Tamara announced, drawing everyone's attention. "Today at the center, I met a woman who reminded me so much of myself from years ago, overwhelmed, exhausted, trying to do everything on her own. And I was able to offer her help, real help, because of what we've created together." She paused, emotion making her voice slightly unsteady. "When I stopped on that highway in the rain, I never could have imagined where that one choice would lead. I just knew someone needed help and I could provide it. It was that simple." "The best choices often are," Michael said softly. "Simple even when they're difficult." Tamara nodded. "What I've learned, what I hope we're teaching others through the Foundation, is that compassion isn't just a feeling. It's a choice we make again and again, even when it's inconvenient or costly. And those choices create connections that can transform lives in ways we never anticipate." She raised her glass, including everyone at the table in her toast. "To kindness that comes full circle, to second chances, and to the family we've built not by blood but by choice." As glasses clinked and smiles were exchanged, Tamara reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment, from a struggling single mother to a woman with purpose, influence, and the ability to create meaningful change. It hadn't been easy. There had been challenges and adjustments, skepticism to overcome, and new skills to master. Her relationship with Michael had evolved gradually, requiring both of them to bridge differences in background and perspective. Her nursing career had taken an unexpected turn toward administration and advocacy rather than direct patient care. But through it all, there had been growth, purpose, and a deep sense of rightness in the path she had chosen, or perhaps the path that had chosen her that rainy evening on the highway. Life rarely followed a straight line from intention to outcome. Instead, it meandered through unexpected terrain, shaped by countless small choices that sometimes, just sometimes, led to extraordinary destinations. For Tamara Wilson Harrington, the most significant journey had begun with a simple choice to stop when others drove, by a moment of compassion that had returned to her multiplied beyond measure, creating ripples of positive change that would continue long after she was gone. The silver brooch that had once belonged to Eleanor Harrington now sparkled on Tamara's lapel, a symbol of the connections that had changed everything, a reminder that in a world often focused on self-interest and personal gain, kindness remained a powerful force, capable of bridging divides and transforming lives in ways that defied expectation or explanation. It was a truth worth remembering, worth sharing, worth building a life around. And so she had. If you found this story meaningful, please subscribe to our channel for more impactful narratives that explore the complexity of human connections and the power of compassion to transform lives. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced an unexpected connection that changed your path? How has showing kindness to others come back to you in surprising ways?